Joe Biden and the Security Conference have a long-standing connection. Since his first visit as a young senator, he's returned to Munich time and again. For example, in 2009, when he just assumed what would become the second highest office of his career. Of course, this was great news for me. Never before had the sitting Vice President of the United States participated in the Munich Security Conference. During his visits as Vice President, Joe Biden presented himself as a staunch transatlanticist.
Europe, all of you, are the cornerstone of the United States engagement in the rest of the world.
At Hotel Bayerischer Hof, Joe Biden also met the German Chancellor. Just like him, Angela Merkel has been a frequent guest at the Security Conference ever since her time as opposition leader in the German Bundestag. For many observers, her remarks at the conference 2 years ago rank among her most passionate speeches. Because we realize that there is tremendous pressure on our classical, familiar order. The question now is whether we fall apart like the pieces of a puzzle and believe that each of us can best solve the problem on their own. And as a German Chancellor, I can only say, in that case, our chances are slim. French President Emmanuel Macron made it clear at last year's Security Conference, in a world where the Americans are on the retreat, he's counting on a strong Europe. We need freedom to act and independence in Europe, our own strategy. But already in 2019, Joe Biden gave a promise to the United States allies for the time after Donald Trump.
We will be back. Don't have any doubt about that.
He promised that one day the United States would do more for Europe and for NATO again.
Ladies and gentlemen, making the transatlantic partnership work means reinvigorating ties among key countries in Europe and in North America. I could not be more excited today to welcome 3 very special guests, virtually, of course, to Munich today. Thank you so much for joining us. A very, very warm welcome. Good morning to Washington, D.C. Hallo nach Berlin. Et bonjour à Paris. Mr. President, Monsieur le Président, Frau Bundeskanzlerin, we are so excited to have you here together and have you talk about a new transatlantic agenda. And I'm sure you are aware that Boris Johnson will join this program a little later. He was still busy with wrapping up the G7 meeting in which you all participated earlier. So now, as our first speaker in this program, it is my privilege to welcome the 46th President of the United States. President Joe Biden has truly been a loyal and long-term friend of the Munich Security Conference. In 2019, Mr. President, you said in this very place, in this very hall, we will be back. Mr. President, thank you for keeping that promise. We welcome you back to the stage, and you have the floor. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. It's great to be with Angela and Emmanuel. We just spent a part of, from Washington perspective, morning together. But I want to say hello to everyone and thanks you at the Munich conference for hosting this special session. For decades, as you pointed out, I participated in the Munich Security Conference as a U.S. Senator, joining my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to affirm the importance of the transatlantic partnership. 3 times as Vice President of the United States, including delivering the first international foreign policy address of the Obama-Biden administration in the first months we were in office. And 2 years ago, as you pointed out, when I last spoke in Munich, I was a private citizen. I was a professor, not an elected official. But I said at that time, we will be back. And I'm a man of my word. America is back. I speak today as President of the United States at the very start of my administration, and I'm sending a clear message to the world. America is back. The transatlantic alliance is back. And we are not looking backward. We are looking forward together. It comes down to this. The transatlantic alliance is a strong foundation, the strong foundation on which our collective security and our shared prosperity are built. The partnership between Europe and the United States, in my view, is and must remain the cornerstone of all that we hope to accomplish in the 21st century, just as we did in the 20th century. The challenges we face today are different. We're at an inflection point. When I spoke to you as a senator and even as vice president, the global dynamics have shifted. New crises demand our attention. We cannot focus only on the competition among countries that threaten to divide the world, or only on global challenges that threaten to sink us all together if we fail to cooperate. We must do both, working in lockstep with our allies and partners. So let me erase any lingering doubt. The United States will work closely with our European Union partners and the capitals across the continent, from Rome to Riga, to meet the range of shared challenges we face. We continue to support the goal of a Europe whole and free and at peace. The United States is fully committed to our NATO alliance, and I welcome Europe's growing investment in the military capabilities that enable our shared defense. You know, to me and to the United States and to us, we'll keep faith with Article 5. It's a guarantee. An attack on one is an attack on all. That is our unshakable vow. And the only time Article 5 has been invoked was after the United States was attacked on 9/11. You, our allies, joined us to fight al-Qaeda, and the United States committed to consulting closely with our NATO allies and partners on the way forward in Afghanistan. My administration strongly supports the diplomatic process that's underway and to bring an end to this war that is closing out 20 years. We remain committed to ensuring that Afghanistan never again provides a base for terrorist attacks against the United States and our partners in our interest. Our European partners have also stood with us to counter ISIS. Just this week, NATO defense ministers endorsed significant expanded training and advisory mission in Iraq, which will be vital to the ongoing fight against ISIS. We cannot allow ISIS to reopen and regroup and threaten people in the Middle East and Europe and the United States and elsewhere. And while the United States is undergoing a thorough review of our own force posture around the world, I've ordered the halting and withdrawal of American troops from Germany. I'm also lifting the cap imposed by the previous administration on the number of U.S. forces able to be based in Germany. I know the past few years have strained and tested our transatlantic relationship, but the United States is determined to re-engage with Europe, to consult with you, to earn back our position of trusted leadership. Earlier today, as was referenced, I participated in the first meeting of the G7 leaders, where I spoke about the dire need to coordinate multilateral action to address COVID-19, the global economic crisis, and the accelerating climate crisis, and so much else. Achieving these goals is going to depend on a core strategic proposition, and that is the United States must renew America's enduring advantages so that we can meet today's challenges from a position of strength. That means building back better our economic foundations, reclaiming our place in international institutions, lifting up our values at home, and speaking out to defend them around the world. Modernizing our military capabilities while leading with diplomacy. Revitalizing America's network of alliances and partnerships that have made the world safer for all people. You know, I hope our fellow democracies are going to join us in this vital work. Our partnerships have...
What is President Biden's American Rescue Plan? The American Rescue Plan is President Biden's comprehensive plan to address the public health crisis and resulting economic crisis. It's a legislative package that will get Americans the relief they need and start us on the path towards rebuilding our economy. The plan breaks down into 3 categories: relief, shots, and schools. First, the ARP provides immediate relief to working Americans. The plan delivers another $1,400 to American households, which, taken with the December stimulus, totals $2,000. It extends unemployment benefits and provides grants to more than 1 million of our hardest-hit businesses. The most important tool to getting our economy back on the right track is getting more people vaccinated. So, secondly, the ARP will fund a national vaccine program, so we'll get shots in the arms of more Americans faster. At the same time, it is critical that we safely reopen our schools, so our kids can go back to learning and our parents can get back to work. We'll do that by funding cleaning, PPE, and smaller class sizes for safe learning environments. There's more in the bill, but you get the gist. We have to give families like yours immediate relief while putting us on the path to end this crisis once and for all. The cost of doing nothing has never been higher. Tell us how the American Rescue Plan would help you at whitehouse.gov.
Hello, everyone. I'm looking at you on this big screen.
Every once in a while, as president, you get to invite close friends into the Oval. I was kidding these guys before. This is American labor, and I've said from the beginning of my campaign throughout my whole career, the middle class built this country and labor built the middle class. And I think we have an incredible opportunity to make some enormous progress in creating jobs, good paying jobs, Davis Bacon, prevailing wage jobs, to rebuild the infrastructure of this country in a way that everybody knows has to be done. I promised, and a lot of these folks have been my friends for a long time. As they say in parts of my state, these are the folks that brung me to the dance. And I appreciate their friendship. And as I said, when some of you were in here when I was with the business community, I said, I want to make it clear, I'm a labor guy. And there's no reason why it's inconsistent with business growing either. So what we're doing here today, I asked them to come in. We want to talk about the Recovery Act we have here that we're trying to pass, and I think is going to get done, and building infrastructure in this country. We are so far behind the curve. We rank something like 38th in the world in terms of our infrastructure. Everything from canals to highways to airports to everything we can do and we need to do to make ourselves competitive in the 21st century. And so the Vice President and I are looking forward to this meeting, and we're going to have a good conversation. And I think, American workers and the whole economy is going to grow in a way that we haven't seen it grow in a long time. This is the time for us to move. So, at any rate, I'll let you know we're going to have a long conversation here. I don't know how long, but we're going to have a conversation as long as they were willing to put up with me and talk about how we're going to get this done. So, thank you all for coming in. Appreciate it. I learned based on the polling data they want everything that's in the plan. Not a joke. Everything is in the plan. The fact is that I asked a rhetorical question. Those who oppose the plan, what don't they like? What particular program don't they like? Don't they want to help people with nutrition? Don't they want to help people be able to pay their mortgages? Don't they want to help people get their unemployment insurance? Don't they want to make sure that people are able to stay in their homes without being thrown out of their homes in the middle of this god-awful pandemic? What don't they like? And the truth of the matter is, the polling data from last night and all the polls you've all done, they come from you guys, not you personally, but your networks and your organizations, show that somewhere between 64 and 69% of the American people think we have to do this. And it's not about the money, it's about, in order to do everything from open schools as we should, to make sure that we're generating income for people who are in real trouble. It's about how much it costs. The federal government has to chip in, make sure we get this done. And as I said, almost every major economist in the country and the International Monetary Fund as well says it's going to grow the economy. And that's what we're talking about here. We're going to talk about how we grow the economy. So thank you all for coming in. Well, folks, thanks for coming in. I'm inviting in some of the leading business people in America to come in and talk about the state of the economy, our recovery package. We're going to talk a little bit, God willing, about infrastructure down the road, and also about a little about the minimum wage.
Hello, everyone. Mr. President, it is a great honor to welcome you and your team to Pfizer's Kalamazoo, Michigan site. Established in 1948, our Kalamazoo site is one of 3 manufacturing plants in the US that are engaged in the manufacturing of the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine. Our colleagues here have been working around the clock throughout the pandemic to ensure a continuous supply of critical hospital medicines, as well, of course, as to produce and ship Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine. From hour 1 of this presidency, and to be honest, well before the elections, President Biden has demonstrated an understanding of the urgency of this pandemic, a deep compassion for those whose lives have been impacted, and an unwavering belief in the ability of both science and American ingenuity to help us bring an end to this public health crisis. I'm happy to say that the manufacturing and shipping of the vaccine have gone very well so far. As of February 17th, we have supplied 40 million doses to the US government, and our shipment accuracy is 99.9%. Of course, recognizing the urgency of vaccinating as many Americans as quickly as possible, we are taking steps to further accelerate our production. To this end, we have found a great ally in the Biden administration, which has significantly aided our efforts in a number of areas, including support for rated orders through the Defense Production Act, help in securing both critical materials and equipment needed here in Kalamazoo to expand our manufacturing capacity and fulfill the US orders. In addition, Pfizer has been working to expand and enhance our manufacturing capabilities to increase the number of doses we are able to produce globally by the end of 2021. As part of this expansion, we are adding a new formulation suites here in Kalamazoo, lipid production capabilities in both Kalamazoo and at our site in Groton, Connecticut, and fill-finish lines at our site in McPherson, Kansas. In addition, we have engaged 2 US contract manufacturers, and we are also increasing the supply of raw materials from existing suppliers and bringing on new suppliers. We have improved our processes to double the batch size and increase yield, and we have deployed more efficient lab test methods to reduce release times. All of these efforts have allowed us to reduce our timelines from approximately 110 days from start to vial ready, and we are now approaching an average of 60 days, which is an almost 50% improvement. Thanks to all of these actions, but more importantly, thanks to the support of the Biden administration, over the coming few weeks, we expect to increase the number of doses being shipped from the US, for the US, from an average of 5 million doses per week, which is the average until now, to more than double of that number, starting from the next couple of weeks. We are on track to provide to the US government a total of 120 million doses by the end of March, and to reach 200 million doses released by the end of May, 2 months ahead of the original schedule of that milestone. Of course, today, during this meeting, the President challenged us to identify additional ways in which his administration could help us potentially accelerate even further the delivery of the full 300 million doses earlier than July. Mr. President, the challenge is accepted, and we will try to do our best. We are also very pleased to say that we are continually looking for ways to improve accessibility to the vaccine. Just this morning, we announced new data demonstrating the stability of our COVID-19 vaccine when stored for a total of 2 weeks at -20 degrees Celsius, a temperature more commonly found in pharmaceutical freezers. This is in addition to the 5 days of stability at standard refrigerated temperature between 2 and 8 degrees Celsius. If, based on this data, the FDA grants us an update to our license, this new storage option would offer pharmacists and vaccination centers greater flexibility. Of course, all of this work to increase supply and distribution will mean nothing if people are not willing to show up and roll up their sleeves to be vaccinated. That is why we applaud the Biden administration's unwavering focus and strong efforts to advance vaccine confidence, equitable distribution of the vaccine, and overall health equity. Looking ahead, I'm confident the collaboration we are establishing with the vaccine partnership will grow even deeper over the next 4 years as we work to achieve more public health breakthroughs. And this is because President Biden understands the importance of moving at the speed of science. Pfizer's participation, for example, in the National Cancer Institute's Cancer Moonshot initiative is just one example of our shared commitment to accelerating the discovery of medical breakthroughs. Pfizer's Chief Scientific Officer, the head of our research organizations, Dr. Michael Dolstein, is a founding member of Cancer Moonshot. And we all know of the President's deep personal involvement. His advocacy for accelerated cancer research in the wake of his son's Bo's passing has made a real impact. The same type of impact our colleagues hope to make every day in pursuit of our purpose, which is breakthroughs that change patients' lives. Once again, Mr. President, I want to thank you for visiting our Kalamazoo, Michigan site and for all your support. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor to introduce the President of the United States.
Albert, thank you very much. Thank you not only for what you do for the credit you've given me that I really don't deserve. This is a case of life and death. We're talking about people's lives. I want you to know that once we beat COVID, we're going to do everything we can to end cancer as we know it. I've asked Dr. Eric Lander, a renowned Harvard MIT scientist, to co-lead the Presidential Council of Advisors in Science and Technology and the Office of Science and Technology Policy. These are White House offices that bring together the country's top scientists and address our most pressing needs. They'll be part of the administration's work to develop a DARPA-like advanced research effort on cancer and other diseases, just like there is DARPA in the Defense Department that develops the breakthroughs to protect our country. This administration is going to be guided by science to save lives and to make lives better. That's why I wanted to come here, Albert, to thank you, to thank all the workers here in Kalamazoo. And I'm here to thank my good friend, Governor Whitmer, and she has become a good and close friend. The governor's been on the front lines of this pandemic as well for a long time, and I think she's doing an incredible job in very difficult circumstances. And Michigan is also fortunate to have my buddy Gary Peters as United States Senator and Debbie Stabenow. Gary is here. Gary has been a workhorse in making sure that we move through this funding to get things done, because he understands better than anyone it's about urgency, the urgency of the moment. So Gary, thank you, Senator. Thank you for all you're doing. Last week, I toured the Vaccine Research Center at the National Institute of Health in Bethesda, Maryland. I met world-class doctors, scientists, and researchers who were critical for discovering the vaccines in record time. I remember when we first started talking about this, asking Dr. Fauci and others, said, well, it could take up to several years, maybe as many as 6 or 8 years, to find a vaccine. It's a miracle of science and the brilliant minds that we have around us. And now it's a second miracle, the miracle of manufacturing to produce hundreds of millions of doses. Let me say it again, hundreds of millions of doses. I came here because I want the American people to understand the extraordinary work that's being done to undertake the most difficult operational challenges this nation has ever faced. And let me say parenthetically that it's not enough that we find cures for Americans. There needs to be a cure that the world is able to take part of, because you can't build a wall or a fence high enough to keep a pandemic out. On our tour, I met a few of your nearly 3,000 workers, Albert. Experts managing ingredients that come in from different cities and states. Experts handling 3D modeling and artificial intelligence to ensure that every dose is properly crafted. Experts ensuring sterile environments so that each vial, each and every one, is safe and free of contaminants. All of this is followed by extensive safety and quality control inspection, then careful packaging and labeling. We walk by a freezer farm that then keeps those doses viable so they can be shipped. This is an incredibly complex process. And at every stop, safety is the utmost priority. The whole process takes teamwork, precision, and round-the-clock focus. Machinists operating some of the most advanced equipment in the world, working side by side with chemists, biologists, pioneering technologies that less than a year ago were little more than theories and aspirations. And it takes a partnership, in our view, between the federal government and all the companies and universities contributing to the vaccine effort. Just over 4 weeks ago, America had no real plan to vaccinate most of the country. My predecessor, as my mother would say, God love him, failed to order enough vaccines, failed to mobilize the effort to administer the shots, failed to set up vaccine centers. That changed the moment we took office. I directed Jeff Science, my COVID-19 response coordinator, to lead my administration's work with the vaccine manufacturers to buy more vaccines and to speed up delivery. Albert referenced it earlier, and I want to thank him for making it happen. Because we worked together, we're now on track to have enough vaccine supply for all Americans by the end of July. That doesn't mean it'll be in all Americans' arms, but enough vaccine will be available by that time. These orders allow facilities like this one to plan ahead, accelerate their production schedules. Here's what else we did. When we discovered that vaccine manufacturers weren't being prioritized when it came to scrutinizing and securing supplies they needed, we fixed that problem and got them what they needed. We also used the Defense Production Act to speed up the supply chain for key equipment, like fill pumps and filters, which has already helped increase vaccine production. In fact, on our tour today, they showed me a critical piece of machinery they didn't have before. Now they do, and it's allowing them to ramp up production. And as we increase supply, we're carrying out a clear plan to get shots into the arms of 300 million Americans or more. And I know people want confidence that it's safe. Well, I just toured, and it's where it's being made. It takes more time to do the check for safety than it does actually to make the vaccine. That's how fastidious they are. And listen to Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci assured me that COVID-19 vaccines were safe. That's why several weeks ago I went through the rigorous scientific review. That's why I took my vaccine shot publicly, to demonstrate to the American people that I know and believe it's safe. That's why Vice President Harris also received her shot publicly. We all know there's some hesitancy about taking this vaccine. We all know there's a history in this country of having subjected certain communities to terrible medical abuses in the past. But if there's one message to cut through to everyone in this country, it's this: the vaccines are safe. Please, for yourself, your family, your community, this country, take the vaccine when it's your turn and available. That's how to beat this pandemic. And we're making progress. We deployed more vaccinators, the people to put the vaccine in your arm. We're now making it possible for retired doctors and nurses to come back and under law administer these shots. We've put new vaccinators in the field. These include over 800 medical personnel from our commissioned corps at the Department of Health and Human Services, and personnel from the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, Defense Department, National Guard. We're literally lining up thousands of vaccinators, because it's one thing to have the vaccine, it's very different to get it in someone's arms. We're also creating more places for people to get vaccinated. We provided $3 billion to states, territories, and tribes to create hundreds of new vaccination centers to ramp up the existing ones that are there. Right here in Michigan, with Governor Whitmer, FEMA has provided tens of millions of dollars to bolster the state's community vaccination centers. From the National Guard at the Expo Center here in Kalamazoo, to the TCF Center in Detroit, to parking lots and churches across the state. We've worked with governors in California, Texas, New York, and more to come to stand up mass vaccine sites and stadiums that will be open 24/7 in arenas and community centers. It's an effort that's on top of the federal government covering the full cost for the state's use of their National Guards for pandemic efforts. And you suggested I do that a while ago, and I promised you I'd do it, and we did it. We also started shipping vaccines directly to thousands of local pharmacies across the country, so eligible folks can get the COVID-19 shot like they would a flu shot. Here in Michigan, that's already more than 220 pharmacies, like Rite Aid and Myers, in more than 130 cities in Michigan. And that's just the beginning. It's only been 4 weeks. Up clinics that meet folks where they live, folks who don't have access to transportation to get the shots. We're also supplying vaccines to community health centers, federal community health centers, to reach those who are hit the hardest: Black, Latinos, Native Americans, and rural communities, which have higher rates of COVID infections and deaths than any other group. Here in Michigan, we're already partnering with community health centers, serving more than 370,000 patients in 11 cities across the state. That's because you guys have pointed out where they were, why it was so important, and how we'd get to, as Gary talks about, get to the people most in need and the people most dying from COVID. This is important to ensure everyone is treated equally and those hardest hit get the care they deserve. We're now at a point where we've seen the average daily number of people vaccinated nearly double from the week before I took office to about 1.7 million average per day getting a shot. We're on track to surpass my commitment. You may remember when I said in my first 100 days just before I was inaugurated, which seemed like 100 days, but anyway, first 100 days before I was inaugurated, that we'd administer 100 million shots in my first 100 days. But we're on the path to do that. We're averaging 1.7 million a day. Soon we'll be at 50 million, and I'm confident we'll exceed the number. But that's just the floor. We have to keep going. But despite the progress, we're still in the teeth of a pandemic. New strains are emerging. In a few days, we'll cross 500,000 Americans who will have died from COVID-19. 500,000. That is almost 70,000 more than all the Americans who died in World War II over a 4-year period. All the sorrow, all the heartache, all the pain. And while we wait for everyone to get vaccinated, we still need you to wash your hands stay socially distanced, and mask up to help save lives. That's why, with the authority I have as president, I signed an executive order, the only authority I have to require this, to require masking on all federal property, all modes of travel like planes, trains, and buses. We've been calling on governors and mayors and local officials, Republicans and Democrats, to institute mask mandates within their jurisdictions, just like Governor Whitmer has done here in Michigan. Look, I know it's inconvenient, but you're making a difference when you do it. Everything we do matters. We need everyone to do their part for themselves, for their loved ones, and yes, for your country. It's a patriotic duty. We need Congress to pass my American Rescue Plan that deals with the immediate crisis, the urgency. Now, critics say my plan is too big, that it costs $1.9 trillion. So that's too much. Well, let me ask them, what would they have me cut? What would they have me leave out? Should we not invest $20 billion to vaccinate the nation? Should we not invest $290 million to extend unemployment insurance for the 11 million Americans who are unemployed so they can get by while they get back to work? Should we not invest $50 billion to help small businesses stay open when tens of thousands have had to close permanently? Should we not invest, and by the way, they make up half the employment in America. Should we not invest $130 million to help schools across the nation open safely? Right now, 24 million adults, 11 million children don't have enough food to eat. And lest you think I'm exaggerating, think of those scenes you've seen on the television with cars lined up which seem like miles to wait to have someone put a box of food in their trunk. People who never, ever, 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 ever thought they would need help. And through no fault of their own, they're in that circumstance. If we don't pass the American Rescue Plan, 40 million Americans will lose nutritional assistance through a program we call SNAP, the old food stamp program. Do we not invest $3 billion to keep families from going hungry? 1 in 5 Americans are behind in their rent. 1 in 10 are behind in their mortgages. How many people do you know that will go to bed tonight staring into the ceiling and say, God, what is going to happen if I don't get my job, if I don't have my unemployment check? What's happened to me? I'm losing my health insurance. What do I do? This is the United States of America, for God's sake. We invest in people who are in need. Do we not invest $35 billion to help people keep a roof over their heads? I could go on, but you get the point. I'm grateful that the Senate and the House are moving quickly. And I'm prepared to hear their ideas how to make the package better and make it cheaper. I'm open to that. But we have to make clear who is helped and who is hurt. And my hope is that the Republicans in Congress listen to their constituents. According to the polls, there is overwhelming bipartisan support. The vast majority of the American people, more than 70% of the American people, with all the polls you all conduct, including the majority of Republicans, want us to act and act big and quickly and support the plan. Major economists, left, right, and center, say we should focus on smart investments we can make now in jobs and our people to prevent long-term economic damage to our nation and to strengthen the economic competitiveness going forward. In fact, an analysis by the Wall Street firm Moody's estimates that if we pass my American Rescue Plan, the economy will create 7 million jobs this year. This year. We've also been in constant contact with mayors and governors, county officials, members of Congress, both parties. Both parties. I've met with them in my office. I've met with them on the internet, on Zooming on with them. Both parties in every state. And guess what? They agree we have to act now. I got a letter from more than 400 mayors from big cities and small towns They understand we're not going to get our economy back in shape and the millions of people back to work until we beat this virus. That's why the American Rescue Plan puts $160 billion into more testing and tracing, manufacturing and distribution, and setting up vaccination sites. Everything that's needed to get vaccines into people's arms, which is the most difficult logistical effort the United States has undertaken in peacetime. It includes $4 billion for new manufacturing plants. So we're ready to manufacture vaccines in the future. We don't have to wait. I'm going to close with what I said before. I'll always be straight with you. I said in my inaugural, I'll give it to you straight from the shoulder, as Roosevelt said. Because the American people can take the truth. They can handle anything. I can't give you a date when this crisis will end. But I can tell you, we're doing everything possible to have that day come sooner rather than later. And all of you here are doing some of the most important work in this facility right here that can be done. And I know this is personal. I walked in today, and I won't say who came up to me, but one of the people in this building came up to me and said, my father-in-law has died from COVID. I said, can I call him? He said, no, he couldn't take a call. He's just keeping his prayers, please. How many of you know somebody who's in real trouble or has passed? How many people do you know who sat down to breakfast this morning and looked at an empty chair across the table? You've seen the devastation of this virus in your family, your community, but you're stepping up. You're saving lives here, lives of your loved ones, your neighbors, your fellow Americans. You're showing how this town, this state, this country takes care of our own, leaves nobody behind. We can do anything when we do it together. I believe we're on the road, I promise you. I know we'll run into bumps. It's not going to be easy here to the end, but we're going to beat this. We're going to beat this. May God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Albert, thank you and your people for all you do. Thank you. Thank you. Is not the same as putting it in someone's arms. This is going to be a continuous rolling effort. So we will have ordered, much of which would have been distributed, over 600 million doses by the end of July. July 29th is the expected date. But that could change. Look what's happening with the weather now, for example. It's slowing up the distribution right now. But I believe we'll be approaching normalcy by the end of this year, and God willing, this Christmas will be different than last. But I can't make that commitment to you. There are other strains of the virus. We don't know what could happen in terms of production rates. Things can change. But we're doing everything the science has indicated we should do, and people are stepping up to get everything done that has to be done. We're going to have debates about whether or not, for example, I can't set nationally who gets in line when and first. That's a decision the states make. I can recommend, I can say what I've said, like I'm the guy that said we should lower it to 65 years of age. I think 35 states have done that or more. I think that, for example, I think it's critically important to get our kids back to school. I think it's really important because of the psychological damage being done and the loss of time. A kid loses a semester when they're in 5th grade. It means they're not just a semester behind, they may be a year and a half behind. All the difficulty. You were at that town meeting I had where that little girl was worried that, her mommy told her mommy she worried maybe she's going to die. So there's a lot. I think it's important we get people back in school. There's a difference, for example, according to the science now, between kids between the ages of 3 and probably 12 years old in terms of whether they can absorb and or communicate the disease than it is for kids who are 15, 16, 17, 18 years old who congregate more together. It's harder in a high school than it is in a grammar school. We know certain things are necessary. Social distancing, smaller class sizes, ventilation, testing, and the possibility that staff, whether it's the staff taking care of the sanitary conditions in the school, or simply, you've heard me say this before, bus drivers. To open the schools, we need more buses and bus drivers. We can't put kids packed in a bus, sit next to one another. So we know the things that have to be done. The question is the order in which we do them is going to determine on what moves the quickest and where the need is the greatest. Obviously, we still have to focus on first responders, our doctors, our nurses, those delivering the services. But the reason I bother to bore you with that detail is to try to explain to the American people that this is a process, but we know now the fundamental basic elements. The fundamental basic elements are that before you get the shot and after, if you get the shots, and after, social distancing saves lives. Wearing masks saves lives. Making sure that you wash your hands with hot water saves lives. This is not hyperbole. This is not a political statement. It's a reality. The science has demonstrated that. We also know that it's one thing to have a vaccine available. The problem was, how do you get into people's arms? There's not enough people to vaccinate. All the great hospitals in this state, and in my state, they can line up and give people, but they can't possibly handle the volume that is needed. So what do? You get more people qualified to give vaccinations. The quicker you can open up places and people can come up and demonstrate they're on the pecking order, they're ready for their shot and they're qualified. Keeping places open 24/7 makes a lot of sense, but you need people to do it. So we all know the basic things that have to happen. Now, we also know that there are things that intervene. Things happen. Weather. People get ill. People get confused. There's a lot of people who aren't able. You know, you've heard me say before, you know, my little granddaughter can use that cell phone of hers to do more in about 12 seconds than I can do it in an hour. But a lot of people aren't able to. A lot of people who need the help, they say, well, get online. Well, they don't have a means to get online. They might not have, you know, the ability to get online. And they may not know how to do it. Talk about everybody is, you know, most people are within 5 miles of a pharmacy. Well, if you're living alone and you're a 68-year-old woman and you're in a minority neighborhood and there's no bus service, you might as well be 500 miles away. That's why we're leaning out, and Gary, you talked to me about it, getting mobile vans to go out. So we know the kinds of things that have to be done. But there has never, ever, ever been a logistical challenge as consequential what we're trying to do. But we're getting it done, and as my mom would say, with the grace of God and the goodwill of neighbors, we're going to save a lot of lives. Thank you very much.